Professor, India, as you know, has a quite dichotomous energy sector where we are also quite dependent on thermal energy when it comes to production, but also the share of renewables is on the rise. So, as you are a member of the Scientific Advisory Board of Research in Switzerland, and you've been influential in bringing about policy level measures to adopt sustainable solutions in your country, what kind of proactive policy making would you advise in the Indian context, as you know that India can also be quite a price sensitive market?
So I have to say I'm in a commission which gives recommendation about the research policy for Switzerland. So naturally I'm focusing on what can be done on research. And the interesting part is Switzerland really has a long tradition in not subsidizing the distribution of goods, but actually creating an environment which makes it interesting for a Swiss citizen to buy goods which are relevant for the energy transition. So to give you just an example, we're putting a lot of emphasis on education as well as research. So funding, for example, in Switzerland goes into research projects if there is a equal part of contribution industry as well as academia. So there is a natural link basically between industry and academia. I know other countries which put much more emphasis in directly subsidizing research of industry, which basically leaves out a little bit all the efforts which is done by academia. The link is less, this type of subsidizing. The other example which I can give you as policy on a national level is that, again, often we don't subsidize buying, for example, electric vehicles. There's no direct buy scheme, but what we do is we basically make it easier to own or cheaper, especially own the electric vehicle. So there is less taxes if you own an electric vehicle. We have taxes on fossil fuel, means gasoline. We don't have that on electricity if you run an electric car. They're actually exempt from certain taxes, and we have increased, for example, the payload for commercial vehicles if they run electrically. So we compensate for the additional weight of the battery and makes it interesting to run the car. The fundamental idea here is that we are looking often at a life cycle costing. That this is typically something which Switzerland does, so it makes it attractive to own an electric vehicle. It's cheaper in the long run, but you have to invest. And that's where I see, out of my experience, is the problem. As you mentioned, India is a very cost-sensitive country. Unfortunately, it's a cost-sensitive in investment country. Often the cheaper solution is actually the better solution because there's just no funding there to actually buy the higher priced product, even if long-term it might be interesting. So I wonder, it's difficult to compare these two incentives approaches. I know that you have now a good incentive for electric vehicles. I know that you had a lot of incentives for building up a solar industry in India, which is a good way to actually create basically the fundamental or the root of an industry. Yeah? But then somehow it has to become interesting and not only sustainable because you're funding, buying electric vehicles. It's cheaper to run electric vehicles than gasoline vehicles, and then you're at the top level.